Yo, there's Mom, dude. She pulling up in the crib, dog. She pulling up in the crib. Look at her, dude. She's so pimpin'. Yo, Mom, where we at?
We're in the car.
Yeah, but where we at in the car?
In our seats.
She's being a smart ass.
I am.
You got anything to say for the vlog?
I don't know what to say.
Comment, like, and subscribe to Living with Ray.
Subscribe to
Apparently.
Living with Ray.
Oh my God, Mom.
Somebody's got to live with her.
I'm just gonna go myself.
Oh, Naomi, stop it. Why do you say stuff like that?
It's probably better when you say it. Okay, we're gonna go into Sam's Club. I'll see y'all later. Enjoy your Sunday. Not really sure what to expect. Hope you enjoy where this direction is going on this channel, and Mom doesn't lose her mind.
I hope not. I lost my pen. Oh, there it is.
Mom, why are you looking for receipts?
I'm not. I'm looking for a pen.
That's what they always say. She's probably got like 50, 100 receipts somewhere in this car, just
Nope.
let alone. What's up, people? We finished the sunshine room. Lindsay has gathered up some of the indoor decorations. They're right there. We're gonna go around the house because I know that there are still things about. So I guess we'll go get the crates downstairs and then we'll go collect everything else on the inside, then go outside, and then finish up the bath and the ivy garden that we were working on last night. Oh yeah, today is officially the 1st of November, y'all. Hard to believe that there's only like a month left and about a year and a half of my lifespan left. Time sure does fly by. Yo, so the footage you're seeing right now is just kind of like content to like watch in the background. You can literally listen to this with just ear pods and like work at work or whatever. Just saying. Anyway, yo, my name is Ray. My first name is Naomi. I go by they, them pronouns, but she, hers is okay. I'm non-binary transgender. I have autism, OCD, ADHD, and dyslexia, amongst other issues. Now, I'm sure like a lot of the people who are subscribed, the 16 people that are subscribed to me, y'all know everything about me, but I don't know if this is going to be found by anybody else on the internet, so I just figured I'd just briefly add this introduction. So, for anyone who didn't know, I've only been living in Asheville, North Carolina for a whole year as of November 18th, 2020. So this is my 1-year anniversary living here, and I've lived in Tennessee pretty much all my life. So this is going to be talking a bit more about my life in Memphis and what that led to me attempting suicide and getting brain damage. So quick disclaimer, this is going to talk about stress, anxiety, depression, homelessness, unemployment, and suicide, of course, and a bit of transphobia, racism, and sexism. So if this video isn't for you, which it probably isn't, go ahead and click off. If not, and you want to keep on listening to my 1 year in review of previous life to my current life and how much or how worse my life has gotten since the move here and living here for that entire year, maybe this might be interested to you. Next year I'll be doing it again, and next year will just be including my current life, not necessarily past, present, and tense, so just my future life. So the next one will probably be more general to a lot more people than this one. This one's a little bit more selective, I guess. So let's hop into it. Stage 1, my previous life. So before we go ahead and get started, I'm going to let you know I live in like a paper thin wall type of apartment that's kind of the materials of what it was built and how old it is. It's a really old building I live in, by the way. I think it's like close to 100 years old. It was built like nearly 100 years ago or something like that. So if you hear any sounds, it's the neighbors above me, which is, I guess, okay. It doesn't really matter. But I will probably get like super duper distracted due to my autism and ADHD kind of working in tandem here. So if I seem to be going off on a tangent, it's because I can't concentrate. So anyway, in my previous life, I was dealing with anxiety, stress, depression, unemployment, and homelessness with suicidal tendencies just as frequently, if not possibly more, because of the fact that I was unemployed for the last 3 or 4 years. This whole year was the first year I've been employed by anyone, by the way. I haven't, so like my yearly income year to date was be like $4,000. I think like I haven't made more than $4,000 in more than 4 years. This year I'll probably make a little bit more than $4,000 because I've been trying to work like 3 different kinds of jobs. So the job with my mom, my sex work, and my odd jobs that I can pick up anywhere I can possibly get. So I think I'm going to make a little bit more than $4,000, but not anywhere close to like $12,000, which is considered the poverty belt, I believe. I'm not sure. So I've always had to deal with unemployment due to the fact that I can't legally drive. I ride a bicycle or I walk. I had a job working for Publix that I was riding a bicycle for 36 miles a day to get into and from work from when I lived in Fairview, Tennessee, and I worked in like Bellevue, Tennessee. I don't know detail for detail, but I know that that was one of the jobs that I may or may not have had in my lifetime, aside from countless hours spent at Walmart. I don't know. It's just, I always picked myself into doing retail jobs because retail jobs were the jobs that I could last the longest without contemplating suicide. I lived with my brother though, and we kind of just did our own thing. We kind of just like did our own chores. He had friends. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I had a lot of people who just kind of didn't want to associate with me. And for a lot of reasons, I hope they're not for bad reasons, but I know that they're not for any good reasons why they wouldn't associate themselves with me. I don't know. It was a little bit hit or miss. You know, I had a relationship with someone who sexually abused me and assaulted me without my consent. And it kind of trickled down at that point. And it kind of set in me in a mindset that nothing is right and nothing is well and nothing will be well. I had a dog. The government took my dog. The dog was a great source for my mental health that I had. Her name was Rain. She was a border collie. She came from a family friend of mine who passed away with cancer. So I had a really close-knit tie relationship with this type of person and with this dog that I've raised since she was 2 weeks old. She was the best dog I possibly ever could have that I trained, and I loved her very much. With losing her after being raped and not having anyone to turn back to, I contemplated suicide, and I kind of went through it almost. I failed, but I kind of gotten through this part of my life where it's like I can't kind of live alone, and I don't seem to be able to be capable of keeping myself afloat and not homeless. And I found myself coming back to my little brother and my mom, and I ended up living in Memphis for a short amount of time for a couple of years, where I fell in love with someone again. I gave my everything to date this person, and I really did like him a whole lot. Like, we were in a relationship, and we were living together for a bit of time as well. And I was kind of, I don't know the whole details, but I think like I was like decorating his home, and I was making it like a home in a taste that anyone would like, I guess. I don't know. I did a lot of terrible things to this person. I think he deserved a lot better. And I think I left him in a broken state. I probably was not the best of partner for him, and he probably wasn't the best of partner for me. I don't know him. I don't know his name. I see like glimpse of the idea of what this guy must have looked like. But we ended up breaking up, and I did attempt suicide again a bit afterwards before coming here. I'll probably like wait on that one a little bit, and then I'll come into that one in the next stage. So stage 2 is the cost of living, which will make a little bit more sense of why I attempted that. For whatever reason, due to my failure in that relationship, which I would assume is my terrible interpersonal skills of failure to communicate with a neurotypical and reason with that neurotypical, where I would melt down and I would just do the worst that I possibly could have to this person, I decided to become a recluse and not associate myself with anyone, because no matter what I do, it's like I'm speaking about daggers going through people's, bodies, and they're essentially bleeding from internal injuries, because the things that I do and say hurt them significantly worse than them being allowed to be alive, if that makes sense. My words are not the best that I want to word it, but I think y'all know what I'm talking about. It's like every time I speak, it's just senses of pain, and it just misery's out to like everywhere. After failing that relationship and knowing that me and my mom would never get on good talking terms, and no matter what we do, she would always dictate that whether my sex work was viable to do or was appropriate for me to do. I know she would always have her like ways of speaking about that and kind of quietly judging that ability for me, where she would, complain about me not getting a normal job, because no matter how many times I'd apply for one job, I would never get hired there. They'd give me the interview, but then they would be like, okay, well, you're not worth hiring for, so we're not going to hire you. I didn't like that. And while the cost of paying for rent was significantly cheaper compared to other places, it's like $450. You can easily find a lot of apartments in Memphis for $450. I'm just going to point that out. I had to just ended up biting my tongue and just accept that I would live with my little brother for a little short time while she had just left the property forever, essentially. And we were going to be alone. I knew it was going to be forever. I knew that she was going to eventually sell the place. And I knew that eventually I would be alone forever and ever. The other thing that really set me off into a downward spiral of suicidal tendencies was me being able to worry about paying for my hormone replacement therapy. Now, I don't know if you know this, but hormone replacement therapy is really expensive. It is significantly cheaper in terms of getting good RX coupons, and that'll cut down the price significantly for low-income people like myself to afford it. But we still have to pay for medical expenses like having our blood drawn and, hormones tested. In a lot of scenarios, we can't get our hormones tested, but we can get at least the blood work done. So I go to a place called Planned Parenthood. I went to Planned Parenthood in Nashville. They always drew my blood, but they didn't really test for hormones because they didn't know what they were looking at, and they didn't know how to, properly gauge what they needed. So they didn't really charge me an arm and a leg, but that wasn't a really cheap source for me to be able to get my hormone replacement therapy, which in Tennessee I could get extremely cheap. Probably the most cost efficiency of getting my pills were significantly cheaper in Tennessee. I found that my pills were twice the price, if not more, out in North Carolina, which was a shell shock because everything was twice the value of when I was in Tennessee compared to North Carolina. Was twice the price. So like HRT is like significantly more expensive out here than it is in Tennessee. And I guess that's just because of how taxes go. I don't really know the whole factors. Just to let y'all know, like if you are trans and you need hormone replacement therapy and you don't have medical insurance like I do, I haven't been to a dentist in over 15 years. So my teeth are yellow, but I'm not missing any teeth yet because I take care of my teeth the best I can. But here's the thing, like it was like a real culture shock for me to realize that while hormones are still affordable, they rip more into a gauge into my wallet, if that makes sense. So we're gonna get into my last thing, and it's gonna be a little bit dark. So I was showered in medical debt after medical debt from previous attempts of suicide and homelessness and unemploymentness, if that makes sense. that I can't afford something like a therapist. I don't know. I don't think I could like go to a therapist on a weekly basis. It would benefit me if I could go to one on a weekly basis, if not at least twice a month. That would be better than not going. But I feel like most places out here for therapy is like outrageously priced, especially the fact that I need one that knows, that has experience with gender dysphoria and, autism in general. Like I would need someone who knows both of these factors that can, help, because everyone tells me I'm super duper hard on myself, and I know that I'm hard on myself, and I can't really help it. I don't mean it, but I can't help it at the same time. After that breakup, after dealing with all this nonsense, I had attempted the first suicide that would have started to lead to suspecting around brain damage that would cause me to lose a fraction of my memory retention, that caused me to forget a lot of things about myself and the people that supported me quietly behind, I guess, closed doors. Where we lived, that there was like a lot of apartment complexes and houses being built, right? So you could still have access to these buildings from the below flooring because there was no gates and there was no doors that were being locked. They didn't have any door locks yet, and they didn't have like any gates to prevent people from going onto the premises of these construction sites. Well, one of them were 4 stories. I couldn't get access to the 4th story, but I could get access to many of the 3rd stories. And one time I just said, I'll drink a beer. I get really intoxicated, so I don't know what the hell I'm doing. It should stiffen up. I guess that's where I went wrong. And why that suicide attempt failed, because of it stiffening up. That makes it difficult to retain trauma from physical trauma of impact damage, for instance. I didn't know that at the time. So what ended up happening was I ran and jumped off the 3-story building onto concrete. I didn't fracture or break any bones, but I hit my head in several different places that were having an impact upon hitting some poles that were around the area. I don't know how it happened specifically, because they were like, some of them were like horizontal piping outside. I don't know what kind of piping it was, but they were like metal, like bars, like kind of like aluminum barrels, if that makes sense. And I hit my head a few times on these things that were at the ground. And I don't know how I hit them on my head. I had like a massive migraine. I found myself like, I guess like in a hospital. They kind of like discharged me, but like they didn't really ask a whole lot of questions. I mean, they could have like put me in prison or jail or whatever, because like I was stepping onto private property, but they didn't. But my head was just, it was hurting and it was ringing and it was like uncomfortable. And while I can remember a lot of things, I just can't remember specifics. And it's hard for me to retain stuff that I learned, because it like just goes out one ear and forgets it out the other, or I'll keep repeating it and then I'll eventually forget what I'm trying to say. So this one's already pretty long. I think we need to go over to stage 3, which will be hate. And the best way that I can explain what I mean by hate is kerai. I don't know where kerai comes from, but from where I heard it from, it means utter raging hate, like sheer hate, not like loving hate, but actual hate. Don't say kerai about anything. Just don't, because it means that you actually hate that thing or that object. It's not healthy for you. So racism, transphobia, and sexism. Honestly, I'm just going to go out on the fly and say that happens even in 2021. It probably happens like everywhere. It depends on where it is, who it's from, and whether or not they're politically correct. It can be like an annoying topic, very touchy topic. The thing that irritates me in perspective is that people who don't experience it, or don't believe that experiences it, or don't know anyone who experiences any of those, feel like it's not something that actually happens, if that makes sense. Now, I can probably talk about some of these, but I don't feel comfortable talking about, if that makes sense. Because some of these I don't really experience, but some of these I actually do experience, but I don't probably identify with it. Most recently, for two things, I've experienced transphobia from people I've tried, I guess I tried to date, I tried to talk to, that were also queer. And they said that even though I'm trans and I might have gone through the same struggles that they go through, that because I'm Christian, I'm not a good person and I'm not worthy of dating them. And that there's nothing we could agree on because I would be judging them because I'm a Christian. So I guess another thing for racism I've had to put up with is talking about block parties. Since I grew up in poverty and I'm still in poverty, I have a place to live because my mom helps me pay for that rent. She doesn't pay the whole amount, but she helps me pay for the bit that I can't cover. The racism that I was kind of met with recently was talking about block parties and how, making a small meal for other families and other families making another small meal for the family was something that was, something you did or something you didn't do. And they were like, oh, that's what black people do. I'm like, I don't think you have to be black to have a house party. But I'm also not an idiot to not realize that black people are more than likely to be in poverty than white people are. But just because black people are more into being in poverty doesn't mean that white people can't be in poverty either. It's something that can affect anyone. And I think these are things that people need to be a little bit more aware of. I want to advocate for some of these things, but some of these things do not really apply to me. I've had some sexism towards me, but I don't think it was anything incoherent with transphobia. But there are people that might have treated me a little bit differently because they don't see me as a man, or they do see me as a man, but they don't necessarily validate my gender as a female. It can be either perspective. It depends on how that person views you. But I believe it's out there. And I think that was something in Memphis that people automatically assumed were things that did happen to people. In Asheville, I found that some people think that doesn't happen to other people, which is why people make an issue for why Asheville put protections in for people, saying, you can't be racist, you can't be transphobic, you can't be sexist, and you can't be against somebody's religion in the workplace, because those types of things did happen prior and to post of those regulations being resolved. And those are things to be acceptable for. I think those are really great things and reasons why people would want to live in Asheville. I can go on all day about this whole topic, but some of these things just don't apply to me, so I can't really relate to them per se. But what I will say is I found that tourists were more likely to be racist or transphobic, for instance. Now, I know that's a bit of a culture shock to believe that, but the locals here are more politically correct. With tourists, you don't know where they're from, you don't know what country they're from, you don't know what part of the countries that they're from. So you don't know anything about their upbringing, you don't know anything about them. So some of them will just automatically assume, like for me, like I'm a man because I'm tall, whereas other tourists might see that I'm probably a female because where they come from, they have taller women. It's things like that. It's hit or miss. The things that really gripe me about tourists in the bed and breakfast hospitality / hotel industry, which I will make a video on in the future, by the way, at the end of the year. Some of them they seem a little bit entitled, and they also don't seem to care about the environment or the ecosystem. They don't care about recycling. They'll mix everything into trash, so we throw everything away in trash rather than recycling stuff, if that makes sense. And it really agitates me quite a bit that people just don't care. But I'll add that onto a video in the future because I don't want to make this way too long than it already is freaking long. I'm going to go ahead and move on to my final thoughts for stage 4. Would I recommend you living or moving here in Asheville? I'm going to speak from my perspective, but just know that my perspective isn't a general perspective that would affect the most types of people that would be coming here, who would be living here, and how they would determine whether or not they would live here or not. But I'll do my best to make it somewhat general, but it will probably not relate to you. It'll probably relate to somebody else who's in my like low income type of shoes. So after hearing everything about literally everything with this discussion, from my perspective, being transgender and having autism and being a high school dropout with a low IQ and low income, suffering from an array of neurological to mental issues, I can't recommend living or moving to Asheville particularly. If you have to move to North Carolina, I would move to a city that's on the outskirts where rent will be immediately half. That is if you can like legally drive. If you can't legally drive, in my case, then the best thing you can do is try to find a friend who you can move into with in Asheville and see if you can split the rent in half, or at least, bum off of them for some time if they're well off and they don't care about money. But easily find somebody who can split the rent in half to where you pay half and they pay half would be probably the best course of action if you're in my yearly income bracket range, which is below or within the poverty belt. I do think it's still worth the protections. Again, while I've been turned down from trying to apply for many places of work here for people who have resumes and have a huge job history, who don't have missing blanks of job history of just doing sex work, where they probably will judge you and not hire you, where they just view you as a waste of space, as myself. This is not the place to live. You're better off just being homeless, I guess, to be honest, because honestly, people don't care about homeless people. I know that's really sad. It's a big gripe for me because I hate being turned down for unemployment. I know that there will be employment in the future, but it's like, for me, like, I can go a whole year, apply for all the dream jobs that I possibly want or can try, and I won't get hired at any of them. I tried over the summer. I tried to find a job. I tried for 6 months of actively applying for work, and I would not get hired because I just didn't have a resume. I didn't have all the places I worked for that would be, relate to that job. I didn't have any referrals. I didn't have any friends to reach out who could verify, I worked there or whatever. I didn't have any of that. So if you're coming here semi-homeless, semi kind of MIA, don't know anything about anything, that kind of person, this isn't the place where you should go, because they will background check you thoroughly and probably not hire you, even whether before or after backgrounding checking you. Because people just don't care about people who live in poverty out here. They really don't. Now, because, hear me out, they recently had a homeless shelter that was close to a school. The wealthy, entitled adults that had families there said they didn't want a homeless shelter near a school because they would get our kids hooked on drugs or worse. And it just shows that they overgeneralize what they think of a homeless person. Most homeless people are not homeless by choice. Some are, don't get me wrong, some are, but not all. Some people are just there because they got a really shit in the stick there, if you want to put it that way. And that just happens to be the cards they were dealt, and no one's giving them a chance. I told my mom that while I am a waste of space, I appreciate you for pitying me, hiring me, when I don't have any when I'm not even useful at all. She says I'm useful. She says I do a lot of good things for her. It doesn't feel like that because I go in, I hear complaints, I leave, I feel like compliments. It's a weird situation for me to be in. It's like I'm being like, there's like a neurological like type of term for that. But at the end of the day, I'm helping her because this is her dream. I gave up on everything because I gave up on streaming. I used to be a streamer. I used to do a lot of things that I enjoyed doing in life, but I don't do them anymore because I value taking care of my mom and making sure that she gets all the things that she wants to do while she's in her retirement, because I'm paying her back for helping me raise. Even though she didn't technically fully raise me, she did, birth me. She gave me life. She did everything she could for me up to a certain point. So I would feel bad if I weren't actually paying her back by giving her a chance to do her dream for her. So for people in my situation, if they have family that will help them stay afloat, yes, living here is great, especially if you can't drive, you don't want to ride a bicycle for 36 miles out. I don't blame you. These are mountains out here. I wouldn't even do that. I wouldn't be able to do that in my age. I'm old now. I'm freaking old now. And I don't think I could do that now. I can try and go back, but like it'd be rough. It'd be really rough. I did everything I could to stay employed, and I'll continue to do what I can to stay employed. But if you're not well off, it's not worth living here. Just get a place that's like closer to Asheville, but not in Asheville, and you can just drive here, and you'll be paying half the mortgage and half the rent. Places out here are just way too expensive because people are just way too greedy with their money. You're paying for the experience and the location of the location, not necessarily because it's beautiful. You're just not paying it for that. It's close to everything in terms of retail stores and restaurants. My favorite restaurant is Laughing Sea, by the way, if you're wondering. I also don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm looking at the notes right now, and the other method to having HRT was a place called Choices in Memphis, and it was not as cost efficient as just driving to Nashville. So when I had my breakup with my boyfriend and I didn't have any other transportation to go to Nashville, what I ended up doing was I ended up self-medicating, which I don't recommend because you don't know what you're getting into. You don't know where those medications are coming from. You don't know the efficacy about it, and you don't know what's in it because some of it might actually be dangerous stuff. So if you are self-medicating, try to find a Planned Parenthood or a local informed consent clinic. I know it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. I know it cost me an arm and a leg now, even more so. But I feel so much safer that I have access to Planned Parenthood in walking distance to get my hormone replacement therapy done. I know I have to walk like 12 miles to Walmart to get it filled, but that I feel like is cheaper than Harris Teeter. And if Harris Teeter is cheaper than Walmart, then I'd like to know because that's actually in walking distance. But yeah. Anyway, y'all, if you made it to this part of the video, thank you very much for listening to it. I'm sorry that it was depressing. I hope next year's review will be so much better. I look to be doing different things next year, like trying to save up to get an orchiectomy done, saving up to get my prostate removed because I'm having medical issues there, and hopefully things will look a lot better. I'll try to get more sleep next year. I hope to be growing more things next year in my garden, and hopefully my landlord doesn't mess up any more things. I'm tired of him throwing stuff away, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of him, but it is what I can afford right now. The other places are just about the same value. They're not the greatest, but they're not the worst. But currently I'm close to my mom's workplace as well as close to the center of town. So everything's in walking distance for me. And I really appreciate that. I would like to find a cheaper place to live, but I also don't kind of like trust living with any other person. I feel like they're going to rape me or something bad is going to happen. And don't want that to be the case. Sorry this video has been pretty long though, but it kind of had to be done. Year in review. Everything I do with this YouTube channel is for my benefit, so I don't forget what I'm supposed to remember when I will forget it eventually. And because I know y'all love the content that I upload. I love y'all. Take care. Have a good one. I'll see ya in the next video. I'm sorry that my upload schedule is horrible, but I tried to at least upload once or twice a week, and I don't think I've let that one go. I think I'm doing somewhat good of a track record, even if it's not perfect, and I appreciate y'all watching those videos. Y'all, it is really hot up in here, dude. I'm like sweating so much. I guess we could like technically lower. Probably like what, right here? But like I said, y'all, it is freaking hot in here, dude. I am sweating off the membrane. See my gray hair again? It's been a while since we last been in the attic, and I don't miss it at all. I don't miss it one bit, dude. It is, oh my god, dude. The only good thing and the only good time to be in this attic is during Christmas time, when we go ahead and take all these down. Now, we do not decorate really this extravagant during November, because it's mostly me doing all the decorations, and November gives me a break from decorating, because if we decorated these last 3 months, it'd be me being keeled over. I'd be keeled over from decorating for Halloween, then Thanksgiving, and then freaking Christmas all in one go. Like I would definitely keel over, because then I have to, undecorate the house. So for all 3 of those months, that would be it wouldn't be desirable at all. Let's just go ahead and put it that way. There are some things this year, and you will notice this coming around Christmas, about how we have so much stuff for Christmas, but hardly anything for Halloween. And when I did decorate this year for Halloween, I did notice that we are missing a lot of stuff that we could potentially put outside. The inside of the house pretty much was decked out to the best it could possibly could. And I think to be honest, I think any more that I put in for indoors Halloween would be like way too much stuff. Outdoors, there's so much more space that we could have decorated, because there is like a walkway out here where we're looking at the window right here, and people can just like walk through this pathway, and it's literally a garden. So to not have stuff there on those pathways means that we are missing out on a lot of decorations that could potentially be utilized with our gardens. So I already knew going into this, expecting that I wouldn't have time to like shop and redecorate. It was more like me looking into all the crates to figure out, what is trash, what is keep, what can I use. And that's kind of what I did last year for Christmas. I did the same methodology. And I threw out a lot of stuff, and I kept a lot of stuff. So this year I will have more time to essentially decorate the rooms, throw out more stuff, and probably get more stuff to put in for Christmas. And that'll devote my time, which will happen for next year for, Halloween. And that's going to be a thing that's going to happen next year that I look forward to doing. I'm tired of being in here. I'm sweating. I'm got stuff to do. I have one more room to do, and then we are done here for the day. And then I have some errands I need to run with Oak Dice, and Hanani's doing a like a Squid Game right now, and it's kind of okay to talk about this because I think by the time that y'all see this vlog, that Squid Game is going to be probably well and done for the most part, or at least well and known about by the time that first episode comes out. So we're going to get out of here. We're going to go downstairs, finish up the Ivy Garden, the bath, and the, scrubbing out the bath, and then vacuuming. And then we'll go do the thing with Oak Dice, and then Hanani, and then Oak Dice. It just depends on who is available first.